Last week, we met Naomi and Ruth. Naomi's husband and Ruth's husband had both died, and the two women were back in Naomi's hometown of Bethlehem alone. They needed a plan. In that culture at that time, the men provided for their wives. Without husbands, they didn't have food or money. An even bigger problem was that they didn't have a way to continue their family. Ruth had no children and no husband. Ruth and Naomi didn't know what was going to happen, but God did. He was about to put them on a beautiful path for the future that He had planned. Not only was God's plan going to take care of them in their future, but was going to provide for the world for eternity.
Ruth got to work to provide for Naomi. She went to a local field and began walking behind the harvesters, picking up any grain that they dropped or left behind. God's law instructed farmers to leave behind the edges of their crops for the poor to glean or pick up from. That's exactly what Ruth did. However, this wasn't just any field. This part of the field where Ruth was working belonged to a man named Boaz. Boaz was a very wealthy and very respected man in Bethlehem. Boaz also happened to be a relative of Naomi's husband who died.
Spoiler alert! Now, I won't give it all away, but just know that God had guided Ruth to exactly where she needed to be, and she didn't even know it yet. It was no accident that Ruth was working in Boaz's field, or that Boaz was related to Naomi's husband. God knew the future and had a great plan.
When Boaz came to the field, he asked about the young woman who was working there. The servants told Boaz how hard Ruth had been working. Boaz spoke to her, telling her to stay in his field where she would be safe. He gave her food and water. Boaz even instructed his servants to watch out for her and to leave extra grain for her to pick up. Ruth asked, "Why are you doing all of this for me? How have I found favor with you?" Boaz answered, "I have heard of everything you have done to take care of Naomi since you came back. You left your home and your family to take care of her. May the Lord reward you for what you have done." Ruth left that day with way more grain than she could have ever expected. Naomi was excited and asked her where she had been working. When Ruth told her, Naomi was even more excited and shared that Boaz was a relative of her husband. In fact, he was a kinsman redeemer.
Wait, what is a kinsman redeemer? In the laws that God gave to Moses, God said that families would have kinsman redeemers. These were male family members who were supposed to help family members who were in trouble. They were supposed to redeem or rescue family members in need or in danger. This meant that to redeem or rescue Ruth, the kinsman redeemer was a man who was legally allowed to marry Ruth and help their family. And Boaz was that guy.
Ruth worked in Boaz's field for many more weeks until the harvest time had ended. Then Naomi said to her, "It is time for us to find someone who will take care of you and help our family. Boaz is our family redeemer, and you have been working for him for weeks. Tonight, dress nicely and put on perfume. Go and lay down beside his feet." Ruth did as Naomi told her. At midnight, Boaz woke up and was startled to find someone at his feet. "Who's there?" he asked. "It's me, Ruth," she replied. "Take me under your wing, for you are our family redeemer. You could marry me and help our family." "Ruth," Boaz said, "you have shown me great kindness. I want to do what you are asking, but there is a family redeemer who is closer than me. He is supposed to have the first chance at redeeming your family and your land. If he doesn't want to, I promise I will."
Did Boaz just reject her? Ouch. No, that's not what was happening. Boaz really wants to help, and he really wants to marry Ruth, but he is also a good man who wants to do the right thing. The law said there was another relative who got the choice first. If that man wanted to redeem Ruth and her family, he should be asked first.
The next day, Boaz went right away to the gate of the town to wait for the other family redeemer. When Boaz found the man, Boaz explained that Naomi would be selling her husband's land and asked the man if he would want to redeem it. The man said he wanted the land. Then Boaz told him that in addition to the land, he would get Ruth as his wife. The man quickly said no because that would cause problems in his own family. Boaz declared then that he would marry Ruth and be the family redeemer.
Do you see all that God did here? God had guided Ruth to go back to Israel. He had guided her to work hard in the field she found, which just happened to be the field of Boaz, who just happened to be the one who could save her family. Now God had made sure that Boaz would be the one to redeem Ruth.
Ruth and Boaz married and had a baby boy named Obed. Obed would have a son who would have a son who grew up to be King David. Then many generations later, Obed's family would include Jesus. Not only did God guide Ruth, but he used her family to one day bring Jesus into the world.
Ruth never could have imagined the future God had for her when she moved to Bethlehem with Naomi. But God knew her future and guided her exactly to where she needed to be. God also used her family to continue his plan for the whole world when he would send Jesus to earth to die for our sins and make a way for us to be redeemed or rescued from our sins. Boaz redeemed Ruth, rescuing her from the terrible situation that they were in. Boaz is a picture of what Jesus would one day do for us. We are in a terrible situation on our own because of our sin. Jesus chose to redeem or rescue us. Everything that happens in our lives is part of God's bigger plan of redeeming and restoring his people. God used Ruth's family to continue his plan for the whole world. God would send Jesus, who came from Ruth and Boaz's family, to the earth to die for our sins and make a way for us to be redeemed or rescued from our sins.